Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Astro Imaging Channel for all you Astro Imaging junkies out there. We're proud to present to you tonight. Many of you have contributed something to our program tonight. Arno does a great job of asking you guys to turn in something so that we can all see it. And this time we were talking about the beauty of dust, glowing gases out in the universe, and you turned in a bunch of pictures. I forget 70, something like that, and he went to the work of putting them all together so that we could see them. Let's look at the calendar real briefly. Tonight we're going to have The Beauty of Dust. That's the premiere of that movie that you guys contributed to and Arno put together. And then we'll have a brief description of some kind of animation. I don't know whether it's GIF animation or GIF animation, but we'll probably hear about that. And then Eric's going to talk about that. And then we're going to wind up the evening with a third segment where Alex that's me, is going to be talking in a pre-recorded segment about PixInsight projects, we were calling it templates because you always process about the same way each time. Why not use PixInsight projects to help you with that template of how you're going to process the image? Next week, we're going to have Gary M. talk about imaging the ARP galaxies, and the ARP galaxies are pretty cool. Because I know that because I am an Astronomical League member and I am working on my ARP galaxies right now. I tried a couple of them, and so far I've managed to find one. They can be a little bit further away. Some of them are very common, like M51's an ARP galaxy, and I think there are something like 38 of them are on the Herschel 400, and I've gathered all the Herschel 400s. It's just that I haven't quite really got started on my ARP peculiar galaxies, and Gary's going to tell us a little bit about that. Gary, are you here right now? Can you tell us what you're going to talk about next week?
Sure, I'm happy to. Can you hear me now, Alex?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. So I think we're all familiar with the different catalogs in our astronomical canon. And for me, I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the ARP catalog. It's a fantastic, as you started to mention, it's just a fantastic, diverse collection of what is called peculiar galaxies. Most of you have seen it. It's 338 images. They range in size from about a degree to I think around 15 arc seconds, which is about half the size of Venus. And so there's some real common ones out there, like you said, Alex, M51, the antenna galaxies. But there's also a lot that are obscure. And my 5-year project, which I just concluded, was to image all 338 of those ARP galaxies. It took somewhere in the order of 2,000 or 3,000 imaging hours, and it was kind of a labor of love. Which I started and stopped a number of times. So we're going to be talking primarily, really the focus is how to use longer focal length telescopes to image small objects, and some of the tips I would have to do that, and just talking about my journey in doing that. And then also looking at the ARP catalog in some detail, and the interesting insight that we get now by imaging these in our backyards in color versus when they were imaged by Dr. Art back in 1960s with the largest telescope in the world. So it's interesting to compare those images and draw some conclusions and to find some mistakes actually that Dr. Art made. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. But I have the utmost respect for Dr. Art. We'll talk about him more next week. So Alex, that's a snapshot of what we expect to see next week.
Thank you very much. I'm going back to sharing my screen. And after he does that, then we've got some people from that were out at Okie-Tex, the Star Party in early October, and we've captured 4 or 5 or 6 of their imaging rigs, and we're putting together a video, doing some final editing on that, where you can just walk around Okie-Tex for a while and listen to a couple people talk about their rigs. And then don't forget, by the way, I forgot to mention, I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving with your family and significant others. And if you couldn't be around them, at least, appreciated some of the good things that have happened to you. Then we've got people coming back. And as you can see, we've got a pretty good pretty good schedule, pretty thick all the way up through February. But in March, we start needing people, and you know how we get people. I've been very encouraged lately because there have been I've gotten people just hit this right here. They come over the contact, and they give us their first and last names and says, "Hey, Alex, would you guys be interested in a talk about blankety blank blank?" And actually, it's usually more specific than just blankety blank blank. But and we generally say, yeah, and we schedule them up and stuff like that. So we would love to hear from you. We're particularly interested in anybody who would like to tell us about how they process images, because we haven't been doing much processing lately, we've been noticing. So please get with that. Now, another thing that I think over here. Oh, that's me. I thought I was being interrupted, and it was just me when I switched over to the big YouTube screen here, so that I could point out to you. Now, look, we've got a whole place for you to ask a bunch of questions and say, "Hey, how you doing?" and stuff like that over here, and to make comments over there. And I think you can add some money to it over here, and make suggestions about the program and stuff like that. So ask your questions over here, okay? Please do that, because we really want to hear from you, and we want to be able to answer a question. The thing that's different about the Astro Imaging Channel that you don't find in a lot of the other YouTube programs is that we're live. You can ask us questions and get answers from us, although maybe not so much today. Well, we'll see. So I think that covers that. No, I have one other thing I still need to be sharing for. Two other things I want to be sharing for. We had a wonderful workshop that Rory put together. Here are 8 of the images that we got. I don't know how many more he got, but we now have rewritten the web page here. And we've defined what a TAIC workshop is. And we don't have any workshop in the moment planned, but we plan to have one of these about every 6 months or so, where we provide a set of data and you guys can go ahead and send in your work and stuff like that. But all of the ones that we've done so far, or at least all the ones that we could still find data for, are still in there. You can go back and get Eric's data, and you can see the program that we based on that. You can click on this link and it takes you over to where you can get Eric's data. And here you can get Stephen Miller's data for the jellyfish, and a couple of mine from NGC 7000 and M13, and Eric's M42 data. And we don't know what the next one would be. If you have a good data set that you would like to see people work on, you go ahead and contact us using that contact button. And one other thing I wanted to show you today was that one, TAIC shots. Now, this web page has been up for a while, and it'll change next week because we're finished with this one, Nebulae, the beauty of dust. And this is what we're going to be seeing in just a moment here. And we give you a time that you can turn in these things. Usually it runs for, about 2 months you have to submit your images. And then they all go over to Arno, who packages them together and makes some comments and put some graphics on it and things like that. Well, you'll see what I mean. This page will be rewritten in the next week or two. And you can go back and you can see other efforts that we've made in the past where you guys have sent in pictures and we've moved them into a video. So that's some of the things we're doing at the Astro Imaging Channel. And I bet you'd all rather stop seeing me, and instead, why don't we have Tim, who is in charge of the program tonight. Tim, you about ready to show us the beauty of dust?
Yep.
Okay. I think I'm ready. You can take it over, right?
I got you.
Okay, cool. You got it. Well,
Alex, we're back.
I know, I was watching. I know we're back. I was just musing about, that's a nice way to end a Thanksgiving weekend, isn't it? Gives us lots to Thanksgive about. So I thought that was pretty impressive work. Thank you, everybody who contributed to that. And I ask that everybody in the future contribute more, because we will be doing this again. Somebody suggested star clusters. It's a good idea. You know, I like star clusters, even though I don't manage stars very, but that's about me. Let's not talk about me. Just thanks everybody for doing that. Thanks especially to Arno. Arno's one of those people that takes over a job and he just knows how to do it. Or if he doesn't know, he'll figure it out. He'll ask a few questions if need be, make sure everything's done right. Thank you very much, Arno, for putting that together. In a GIF or in a GIF, we're going to hear from somebody to tell us about how to get animated. But I want to explain something here. We work pretty hard at trying to make something that's very useful for everybody when we're doing this. And the things that we have ideas now and then, and some ideas are good ideas and some ideas are not so hot ideas. But one of the ideas that we've had is we've noticed that when we tell people how to image or tell people how to process in particular, we've had people come on and they spend the whole hour or hour and 15 minutes or something going through the whole process. Well, maybe you only need one little part of that process, one little portion of how to process something. And would it be good if we could break all of these hour-long programs into maybe 15 or 20-minute segments where you can go back and find out just about how to do just that thing? And so what we decided to do about a year ago, and we haven't gotten around to doing much of it, is to maybe make some 20-minute segments. And because we knew that the Beauty of Dust would be a 12, 15-minute segment, we needed a couple of other segments to fill up our scheduled time. So Eric volunteered to do one and I volunteered to do one. And we're going to see how it works out. Now, having said that, I'm going to check out and turn it over to Eric. Eric, take over.
Thanks, Alex. Let me share my screen. Your entire screen. And here we go. Well, before we get into the actual process, wait until that comes up, I would just like to settle one issue right away before the question comes up. This is GIF. I'm going to do GIFs. I know there's a lot of controversy about that. This is peanut butter. GIF animations are animations that we do in our processing.
You said you had a good argument. I'm still waiting to hear it.
Oh, I knew it would come up. Well, anyway, so let's get started. Let me show you some examples of some GIF animations that I have done before. Here we go. I'm just going to drag these up on the screen. We still have GIF peanut butter here. Give me just a moment. So one of the things that commonly we will animate or we'll see going through our images are comets. So this is a simple black and white or grayscale GIF animation of a comet. Nice and smooth. Now, when you do your images, I would say if you collect 10 hours of data, you will see things going through your images that are not stars. And so we're going to talk about how do you animate those. Let me bring up another one. Here's another animation. This is one I did on the eclipse. And they're all kind of done the same way. They're all kind of time-lapse done in Photoshop, where we show the transition of an object in our screen, or in this case, an eclipse. Comet. Let me bring up one more. This is the one I'm going to show you tonight. Now, it could be kind of hard to see, but I collected data for over 5 days. And let me just expand the screen. And up over here. See that little guy? So each one of those segments is a night's worth of data that I collected and animated. And that's the end of it. And then it will play over and over and over again. Obviously, there are jumps between the different days because we can't do this during the day. So we're going to show exactly how I did the GIF animation for this particular asteroid going through our scene. Let me close that down. And let's start off with PixInsight. So when you do PixInsight, you end up registering all your images. And there's a nice little function that you can use called blink. We all use blink usually to assess the quality of our images, to throw out those that are obviously bad that we don't want to process. But you can do some other things with the blink animation. So let's bring that up. So I've taken a crop of the images from one day from that particular asteroid going through my scene. So I'm going to open those up. And they should be right here. So these are the different subs from one particular day. I don't want that one. Oh, here they are. So let's open all of those. So in this case, these are the registered calibrated images. I probably should have only opened a few of them, but let's cancel out and do this again. Let's open just a few. So what do we get here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, we got 11. Now, if we play through these, all being registered images, you'll see our little asteroid moving. See it? Ah, a plane flew through it. Can we see it up there? Is it obvious, or do I have to expand it? Let me just blow that up. No, I think I can't do both. So let's go back. Can we see the asteroid up there in the upper left? Now, if you notice that down to the lower left of that one, you see a little asteroid as well. And when you look closely, especially at the luminosity images, you'll see a lot of things flying through your images. There's actually a third one. I'll put my pointer on it. See this guy right here? Oh, we have 3. But we're really looking at the big one, big guy right here. Now, I think there were 20 or 30 images, but we're only going to do a few because it takes a little time to do the processing that I want to do. So what do we do next? We have to generate a series of images that we can take into Photoshop, and we can animate using the GIF process. And Blink has a nice little function down here, and it's a video. It will crop and create a video. Now, I'm not interested in the video, but if I punch that button, it'll turn these linear images. These are not stretched at all, but they're registered and they're balanced. It's going to create little JPEGs, which I can move into Photoshop and do the animation. So basically, by going through your regular processing, ending up with registered images, you can create the default stretched images that you can use for an animation for an object going through your scene. So I punch this little crop and create. Hopefully you can see that. And it's going to create, this is the program which we're not going to use. You're going to put an output directory. So let's just create one. Let's call these new folder. JPEG 2. Select folder, and if I punch the button here, run, it'll create those, I think 11, calculating the blank. This will take probably less than a minute. Hopefully less than a minute. Now, obviously, if I'm going to do 30 or 40, it takes a little more time than that. When it gets to the end of the process, see, it's creating the JPEGs over here on the left on the process console. Then it will try to create a video. I'm not interested in an MPEG video. I'm interested in the JPEGs that it's going to create that I can then move into Photoshop and create the animation. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we got 3 more to do. Yeah, it's failed to create the MPEG, but I don't care about that. Okay, we're done. We've created default stretched images, which show, in this case, an asteroid going through our image that we're going to now animate in Photoshop. So we're done with PixInsight. Now let's bring up Photoshop. Now I have the latest version of Photoshop, but you can do this even if you have version 6 of Photoshop, you can really do the same thing. Some of the menus are a little bit different, but the process is really the same. And if you click on the File menu, there's a series of scripts. And one of the scripts you can run is load files into stacks. So why don't I blow that screen up so you can see it a little better. File, scripts, load files into stack. So we're going to create a stack. And let me get out of here. And I'm going to browse to upload those 11 files. There's my JPEG 2 folder. I'm going to open that up. And there are our default stretched images. I'm going to put those in there. And I'm going to say, OK. I don't want it to line up because they're already registered. And now it's going to create. This will probably take another less than a minute. It's going to create a stack. And those stacks are going to be those images that we just default stretched into PixInsight. And there should be 11 of them. Obviously, I can't do all 30 of them because that would take too long for our presentation. In the meantime, any questions come up? Oh, we got the jet going through that.
Nothing yet. I guess I have a question actually.
Yes.
Do you just look for things, look for movers when you're blinking through your frames, or
Okay.
is there, what way do you look for things moving in your frames?
Well, I mean, we all blink through our frames. I mean, that's the first thing we do when we move them into PixInsight, is we look through to see things that we should be throwing out. And you will see things moving through your frame. Mostly they're small asteroids. And the stacking process will just eliminate those. Actually, when I stacked these up, I got kind of a blur. And I went back and looked, and what is that blur? And then when I blinked through the registered images, I said, oh my God, that's something big there. And that is one of the brightest asteroids in our solar system. Okay, now you know that.
And Eric, you can do this with eclipse pictures or anything, any pictures.
Right,
where you
the animation process, you can stack up anything that has movement in it, and you can create a GIF animation with that. But now we have our little stack. And you see down at the bottom, let me just blow this up so you can read that as well. Just the menus in Photoshop can be a little bit small. I've opened up this timeline menu, and I think in version 6 it has a different name. And I can create a frame animation. That's an animation of those 11 frames just by clicking this button right here. And then if I go over here, again, the expanded menu, you see this little menu over here? And all I have to do is say, make frames from layers. Okay, I got my layers, make frames from it. And there is my animation. Let me get out of the expanded menu. And if I play it, there's a little play button down here. And there's our 11 frames. And there's a jet going through it too. Sorry about that. Now, I'm going to stop this because it's going backwards. The asteroid's going the other way. So there's a simple menu command over here which says reverse frames. Now it will play forward. Now remember when I did this a while back, I collected 5 days worth of data, and the animation went from here all the way to there, each day being kind of a series. And I don't know if you can see it. Let me expand that up so we can see those little asteroids. See, there's one right here. See that guy?
That's a separate object. It's not
That's
some
a
kind of weird
separate object.
reflection.
And here's another one. Here's another one. And as you look closely in these things, you see all sorts of. I once had 12 different asteroids going through the frame. So let's escape out of there. I'm getting irritated by that jet going through here, so I can easily just delete. I'm going to delete that frame. Delete the frame. That's kind of bothersome. And you see we have all sorts of streaks going through it, but that's probably what you see in any data collection. You're always going to see those things. So what do we do now? Well, there's a couple things that I routinely do. I generally have a start and an end. And to do that, I generally change the timing of each of these frames you see down below. So let me expand that out and I'll show you how that works. See where here it says 0 seconds. So it's going to go as fast as it possibly can. So I like to have the beginning, let's say a couple of seconds. And at the end, I'll have another couple of seconds. So it'll pause on each time it plays. So now we have the beginning, pause for 2 seconds, go to the end. Now this is kind of a quick animation, 1, 2, and then it plays. Then it goes back, 1, 2, and then it plays. Now this is more interesting when you have like 5 days worth of data, when you're your head is spinning a little bit and you want to see what's happening at the beginning versus the end. And what I usually do in the beginning is I'll put a little bit of text right over one of the layers saying, no, let's stop this. I can just take a little bit of text, use the text tool, and just put it right here. And I can put the so I can put things like the name and the date of the animation. Now that's on top of all those different frames. And so now that will be everywhere. And so next time I play it, it's going to show that bit of text. Oh, I would happen to put it right on top of the asteroid, would I? So let's move this little guy around. So I don't actually have that data, although I can look it up pretty quickly. But that information is really useful when people are looking at your animation. They want to know what are the objects that they're seeing, what is the information, when you can collect it, and you can put that right on top. You can also make it part of a particular frame, so it only shows for, say, the 2 seconds that the first frame is playing or the last frame is playing. Or you can have like 10-second introduction. I'm just going to eliminate that. So before this thing, let's just save this. Oh, let's see. So this is asteroid animation 2.
A question from Chandrasekhar Nori.
Sure.
Do we only see asteroids in the zodiac constellations? So in the ones that are in the plane of the solar system?
I don't know, but you can see these 2 asteroids, the 2 smaller ones, they're coming in at different angles. So I suspect I have seen asteroids in just about every collection of data I have where there are a bunch of stars. So I think anytime you're anywhere around the Milky Way, you're going to see asteroids, sometimes more than others.
And a question from me: what's a good way to find out what the object is that's going through your image? What asteroid it is?
You can look it up
How do you
in
do
the
that?
NEO catalog, Near Earth Object Catalog. There are several of them online. You can put in its coordinates, and it'll tell you exactly what asteroid. So you got to put in the coordinates and the time and date, and it will tell you what asteroids and how bright they are. So
Awesome.
there, and that's how I found out. Actually, this one was easy to find out because it was in Stellarium, and I just looked it up. It was also in my Guide 9 program. But if it's a minor one, so when I first started doing this, I actually said, well, this might be an asteroid that's going to destroy the Earth. So I looked that up, that maybe I discovered something new. It turns out there are millions of these things out there, and they've all been discovered. And they're finding hundreds of new ones every month. So you're not going to discover anything new. But it is kind of cool to look it up and identify it. So let's stop this animation. Now, how would you like to put color into this? And how are we going to do that? Well, it's actually fairly easy. Let's make sure this is it's already an RGB image. And I'm going to open up the color image, the thing that I actually posted online with all the RGB colors. And I cropped it down to just fit this field of view. And it is, let's see, where is this one? Oh, here we go. So I think I did one that was actually cropped. Let's see if I did that. No matter. We'll crop it for it. So this is my color version. And I'm going to make a copy of this. And I'm going to paste it on top of my animation. Nope, don't want to do that. Let me do one thing before we. Now let's do this again. Copy the image, paste it on top. And let's make this less than 100% so we can align it. And now very quickly, let me just crop it so we don't have a bunch of other stuff around. So now we have the color image, but we don't have our asteroid. So what are we going to do? We're going to change the way this image reacts with the images, the layers below it, and call it color. So it's just coloring it. And now we have a color image with the asteroid going through it. Any questions so far?
I've got one.
Sure.
Does Blink work with color images?
Does Blink? Sure, if you have color images to start with.
I've never tried it.
You do have to the keyword, the Bayer pattern keyword has to be in the metadata of the file. So like for my ZWO images, I've never gotten those to display in color in Blink because the Bayer keyword is not in the metadata, but my DSLR images will display in color in Blink. So it depends on whether that keyword is present.
Okay, so now we have a finished color image with at least 3 objects, including a big asteroid going through it. So now we have to save it. We have our animation down below. We've saved the image, and now we just have to generate our GIF. And under the export menu, Save for web legacy. I have no idea what that means, but that's a command which will take you into the menu to generate the animated GIF. It's thinking for a minute. You see the little temperature bar down below. And when it gets done, it will be able to be saved as an animation. And you see that I've already selected, so here's 256 colors. You can select less to make it a little smaller. Here's our GIF animation. Usually the defaults are pretty good for the GIF file. And now if we hit save, it will produce the animated GIF. Now, the problem with saving some of these big animated GIFs is that they're really too large to post on AstroBin. Or if they are, they might be 20 megs. And, you know, that's pretty difficult to post and pretty difficult to download from AstroBin. But here, I don't know, let me just blow this up a little bit. See where it says pixels here, image size? If I change that, and these are linked, it will make the picture smaller and the animation smaller too. And oftentimes when you have a big animation, let's say like a full screen with a bunch of asteroids going through it, it's really too big to post. And so you just make it a lot smaller. Now, I'm not going to do that now because I want a big animation. So if I just hit save, asteroid animation 2. And in a few seconds, it will save the GIF animation and go back to the regular image. No other questions? Because we're going to play our GIF animation. Okay, it's done.
Nothing else.
Ta-da. And over here on the other menu is the GIF animation, which, well, here are the 5 days. I don't know. Why don't I blow that up so you can see how all 5 days went. So this is Europa, which I think is the 3rd largest asteroid in our solar system. And we can see it moving. See the little, there's Europa. And that's the last day. By the way, it was just fortuitous that it was there. I saw it the first day and wondered what that was. And here it is in day 1. Okay, let's stop that. And where's our, let's say, asteroid animation? Let's put up the one we just did. Wait 2 seconds. Play the frame. That's it. Any questions now? I'll stop sharing.
Nope, no more. I've come back in.
Okay, I'm back in the room.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation,
That
Eric?
concludes. How long was it? It probably went a little longer than it should have.
I got you to that you started at 6:54 and it's 7:22.
Yeah, that went a little bit longer. That's GIF animation.
Well, thank you very much. And hopefully what we can do at some point is package this into a 20-minute segment as it is. And then when you want to find out about GIF animation, you can go right to that particular piece of work. I also tried to do such a production, and I think Tim is ready to play it. If you have any questions, please go ahead and post them there, and I will try to answer them as we're going along. So Tim, take over. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Astro Imaging Channel tip about making template projects. This uses the power of PixInsight with its projects function to streamline your processing. Let's face it, we repeatedly use the same scripts and processes in everything we do. Our processing programs go through these steps, one right after the other, generally with the same parameters set in the process icons and so forth. It's easy enough to call each of the scripts and processes. Here's using the Process Explorer to call the automatic background extractor. That's easy enough to do. And here's a way to call the same process. If you know where it is on the menu, you can pull down on the process menu and go straight to it. If you don't know just where it is, you can pull down all processes, look it up in the list, and click on it, and there is your process just as you wanted it. But let's face it, if in fact we're repeating our scripts and processes, using the same things over and over again with the same default parameters set in those icons and processes and scripts, why not just load them all together with the processes and parameters that we actually use? Many of us have process icon sets that we're already using. So you just go to process icons, load the process icons. I'm going to use the one from Warren Keller. He graciously let us use that on the Astro Imaging Channel. I call them up and up they pop. And we've got all the favorite icons that Warren would give us. Now, if you haven't yet gotten Warren Keller's action icons, you can go to the astroimagingchannel.org, click on links, and click on the appropriate link. Up will pop this page. If you're really interested in this up here, the download icon, it downloads the file to your computer. You don't have to worry too much about this part. And then when PixInsight is ready, it'll tell you it'll tell you to go back to PixInsight and open up the file, and you'll find all of Warren Keller's action items sitting there. Now you'll want to save them, so you go to Process, save your process icons, and then don't put them back in the download folder. Put them someplace else, which is more appropriate so that you can find them next time you need them. Another way to do all this is what I'm advocating today. You make yourself a project. I've got a project called Alex Empty Project, and you can see that it's got a lot of icons over here that would be quite useful to you, I'm sure. It's a little hard to see it there, so I'm going to blow it up. Here's the original looking thing, kind of small. And then here you can see that I've got my functions kind of grouped together. You can see that I'm always using my STF, so it's right up on top. My screen transfer function, I can find it easily. First thing I do when I'm processing is I blink all the exposures from last night and check them out. Then I go into the weighted batch pre-processing, and I've got two icons for that. Notice that these are scripts. You can do more than just processes. You can put in scripts also. I've got one version for my 1x1 bending and another version for my 2x2 bending. Then I generally make an LRGB combined so that I can see what it looks like, and I crop from the image. And I'm not going to go through all the processing steps here, but you can see that I've kind of grouped them together. Here, for instance, where is it? Over here, you can see that I put all the stuff where I mess with the curves and do the stretching and stuff like that. Here are some things that I need, but I don't really need once I start. They're actually called by the batch processing thing, so I put my cosmetic corrections down here. You decide how you want to do that, of course, but each of these things, I should tell you, has their own parameters built into it. You'll see how I do that a little bit later. Now, how do you actually build a template? Well, first off, you have to really think out how you do your work. This fits the way I do my work. How you do your work may be completely different. And so you got to figure out what projects, what processes you use and what order you use them in, so forth. Then to actually start programming your own empty project, first start with a good action item set. And you can see that I've already incorporated Warrens, so you've seen how to start that up. Then go over to your process and you pick individual items that you want to add to it. Add anything that you want that isn't already there. I always use resample towards the end of a program. So I pull down this new instance icon down here, right click, set the icon identifier, which means rename it. And I'm going to call this resample. Okay. And poof, I've got my first one. Get rid of this because I don't need it anymore. And then I'm going to take this resample and I'm going to push it down into the corner. I also want to add cosmetic correction because I'm going to need that a little bit later. I go through, I'm not going to add the actual parameters here. This is kind of make believe. So I'm going to set the icon identifier again and put cosmetic correction. And this is my one version of it because it's my 1x1 binning. So I'm going to tell it OK. Now I've got my second item and it goes on like that for a while. You add whichever ones you want. Remember, the key thing is you use this new instance icon down here, the triangle in the corner, to just drag it off and start it up and rename it. And then you've got your new icons for your own use. You might also want to delete a couple that you don't use. Here's a couple that I don't use ever, so I would delete them. And you just highlight them, and then you delete the selected icons. Now that you've done that, you might want to customize one of them. Let's customize LRGB combo. I can tell you that every time I run this particular process, I'm going to use the same picture names. The image names are always called the same because this is the default of what comes out of weighted batch pre-processing. So I drag these names in one by one. And the important thing here is that I am setting up the parameters for how I'm going to use this from now on. Pretty interesting, huh? So I LRGB, and I've got that. Now, you could just minimize this and it would actually become an icon, but now you got two of them there, things like that. So you can either delete that or whatever. But what I like to do is rename this one. I got to get rid of this one before I rename it. And you've seen now, from now on, it's just making up a new process icon. You've seen this several times before. Set the icon identifier to LRGB combo. Tell it OK. Close this. And everything's fine. Okay, the next step is, you can do this with scripts also. You can't do them with all scripts because they don't all have new instance icons and make it easier to do, and some of them aren't made to be used as scripts like that. But if they've got this new instance icon, you can use it. Now, you'll notice originally they don't have any bias, flats, or darks. But if I go down to add files and then go back to my calibration, last time I collected calibrations, and I collect my master biases, and for that I only want the ones for the 1x1 binning because that's going to be the batch processing for my 1x1s. Then there's some other things I have to set. Now you'll notice I've got my darks, my flats, I don't have lights yet. I still don't have any lights in here, but I'm going to apply my cosmetic correction. Remember I made those earlier? And I always auto detect my reference frame in the first place. And then I do have to set my output directory new each time because it's a new set of files. Then I drag the new instance icon off to the side and I have to exit because when you're in one of these scripts, they won't let you do anything but exit. Change my icon identifier again so that I've got, now I'm going to call this weighted batch pre-processing 1 because it's my 1x1 configuration of this. Now, I'm not going to go on and show you a bunch of these, but there are some that do present a problem. For instance, blink is pretty important to me, but you can't make blink by pulling over the new instance icon because Blink, as you can see, has no new instance icon. So how do you handle that? You simply minimize it using this up here, minimize it, and you'll notice that it stays alive as an action item icon. You got to be a little bit special with it because it's actually a process and not just an icon now. So you minimize it and it's there. Now you're going to want to drag and drop some things. You can grab the whole set and move them around so you make room, and then think about where you want all these things. I'm going to put my cosmetic correction way out of the way down here because frankly I don't actually call it, the script calls it. I don't ever need to actually see it there, but I need it there. Resample is one of the last things I do before saving it for the web. So I put it down there. SDF is one of the first things I do. And well, we can go on and on from this, and you organize it however you like to organize it and stuff. The next thing I would do is generally a batch pre-processing, so I put it next. Then I'll do a LRGB combo probably. Oh, blank has to go up there before everything because I do that before I do weighted batch pre-processing. I make an LRGB combo and then I do a dynamic crop of all of the frames that I'm using before I do another LRGB combo to test how everything's working. So you can see that I've got this stuff back. I've started. I'm not going to do it all for you because we've only got so much time. Next thing you want to do is be sure to close each of the pictures that you've got here, because you're going to want to save this project once it's all set up and all cleaned up and everything the way you want. And we're not going to do all that right now. So you go to File, Save a Project. So you're going to save the project. You've got to go find out with this little box right here where you want it. Put it in your imaging files. Don't put it back in a generic folder. You're going to be able to want to find it every time you start a new every time you start a new image. You want to start with a new blank process, and you get demo is what I'm calling this one, so I can erase it later when I'm finished with this project here. Demo empty project. And then I go ahead and save it. Now you can fill out this stuff if you want. I never do. It's pretty well, I know what it is. I don't need to go into too much detail. And now that project is saved forever and ever and ever. You can come back and change it and resave it as a new project. And every time you finish with a image, you want to save the new project under a new name when you've actually got image data in there. But for now, let's go to see how we would actually use that. To use your new template, you go to Load Project. You find your project that you just saved up. I'm going to use my empty project, and you call it up. Next thing you do is you do whatever it is that you would process with. I always started with Blink. I'm not going to go through the whole process here, but you can see that's how I would start. Then I always minimize that back. Then I go to my batch pre-processing, call it up. I press this little red circle here, and you'll see that my bias, darks, flats are already in here. When I go to my lights, I would have to go ahead and load my lights by adding files. So I go, now remember, I've already selected my files and put them into a particular folder. They're in original right now. So I'm going to pick up all my 1x1 binnings here, and I'm going to open them up, and it populates the field so that I've got all my light images here. You can see I've already got my cosmetic correction already indicated I'm going to use it, and I've already have defined previously my parameters for my particular imager. I chose auto detect reference frame, and I have to pick a place where I'm going to store these files when I'm done, and then I can run the diagnostics if I like, and I can tell it to run, just like you would in any other circumstance. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole processing routine here. You get the idea of how to use this. You just go through your list and with your parameters already defined. Now, there's some things we need to say whenever we're giving advice. One is that this advice is for me. It works for me fine. We could have a splendid argument about whether it is smarter to do separate calibration and stacking, where we calibrate, align, and then integrate, or we go through the batch processing routine, which kind of does that in an automated fashion. But we don't need to do that, because you can make your own project like this, and I'll be happy with my project like that. This is highly adapted to what you actually want to do. Secondly, this whole assumption is that we do the same thing over and over again, and we can only do that if we're dealing with probably the same skies with the same equipment, same exposure values, length of exposure, binning, camera temperature, that our flats, darks, and biases are still good. I have an observatory where I use my equipment, and all these elements are true, so I don't have to worry so much about that. Things stay the same. If your things don't stay the same and you need new flats for each night, well, you're going to have to put your flats in that batch pre-processing. Also, the default individualized parameters are always there. I know my batch pre-processing will always deliver me my frames. These are the names of the frames. They're all the time. So I don't have to put them in each time. They're always going to be the same. If I want to change my transfer functions to something I like or don't like, I just put these in as an example. I can go ahead and change them. And when I call up my project, they will be like that and not in their original PixInsight defaults. And there's nothing to say that you can't have multiple empty projects. I have a one-shot color camera, and it doesn't use the same batch pre-processing as I use. So I've got my batch pre-processing for one-shot color camera, my batch pre-processing for my two binning modes of my LRGB camera. So when I'm doing that, I can have two different empty projects, two of them. Well, folks, I hope you picked up some ideas here that will help you in streamlining your processing. Thank you for the Astro Imaging Channel for having these tips. If you liked them, please let us know. Thank you. Okay, that concludes that particular program, that 20 minutes worth of advice. And we did have a couple of questions, and I think I answered them as we were going along. So where are we all together? Let me see. Will the template be usable if you update to a new PI version? John wants to know. Well, yeah, pretty much. I don't see that any of these things have changed all that much anyway. Which PI version you've got so far hasn't changed. Someday it might. But I can tell you that I'm constantly tweaking, and when I find a better way to do something, I'll change that empty project as well.
I've had pretty good success in PixInsight after I update it, still being able to open all my processes. Sometimes some scripts won't open after updating, but those are changing pretty frequently with version updates. But most of my processes open no problem when I get a new version of PixInsight.
Yeah. Sometimes like the word the pre-processing script, you can't go back a year and use a project that you formatted then and run that script, because it won't work, because they've changed that particular script. So scripts will not function, and all you do is you just update them and then you save it as a new version for that project.
Yeah, this is not going to remove all thinking about processing. This just, a lot of the dumb things that you do over and over again, you don't have to do anymore, because you're already done them. So they're there. Now, if something changes, yeah, you're going to have to fix it a little bit. Things like that. So, okay. I think that pretty much brings to an end what we had to bring for you, what we had to present to you tonight. And if anybody else has any questions, I don't know. Well, I guess we're over for the night. So, did you see any workspace use developing a template project? Oh, I've never used workspaces. I know you can put what, 5 workspaces in the in PixInsight. My stuff has never been that complicated, so I've never used it. I would imagine that whatever a project is, from what everything I understand of a project is, it saves the state of everything that you're working on in that project. If that's incorrect, you can go ahead and correct me. I don't know.
You can select what you want saved in that project. So I tend to save just the process icons and not the images, because I use a project template as a starting point. So I don't save images with it. But yeah, you can have it save all the workspaces, but you can't have the same process icon or the same process saved as an icon on like multiple different workspaces. PixInsight doesn't like that. So that's why I don't use the workspaces myself.
Well, Alex, I think it's fair to say that if you're going to use PixInsight for any period of time, you really have to use projects. Otherwise, you're doomed to open up this process and configure that process again. And how are you going to keep track of it? So projects are, I would say, an automatic, something that you should use. And for those of our viewers who haven't, I would recommend you start right away.
Super helpful for when you use, like, especially for things like image integration that have a lot of settings and you have a particular set of settings that tend to work for your telescope. I have an instance of image integration for integrating darks, one for integrating flats, and one for integrating lights, because they all have different settings the way that I use it. Yeah, it's essential because I don't have to be resetting settings all the time.
Okay. Folks, I think all of you people out there that have been doing this for a while have a lot of stuff in your heads that you need to share with other people. This is one place you can share it. So I encourage you to hit that old contact thing and say, hey, Alex, would you guys like to hear a presentation about how I do this or that or the other thing? And yeah, generally speaking, we'd like to do that. What did I not have to say? The workspace is color coded with their background. Okay. Okay. Well, Tim, you're in charge, right? You can take us out, dude.
Night, everybody.
Good night. See you next time.